Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Christy Hartsgrove-Moores. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a faculty member in the Department of Theater Arts. And I'm also the director of the Obermann working group called Decolonizing the Performance Classroom. Thank you so much for joining us today. With us, we have Caroline Clay, who is also a member of the group and who is an assistant professor of acting in the Department of Theater Arts. And she connected us with Professor Thomas and also with her students, Katie Guchik, Olivia Foster, and Emily Gurnall. So wave, everybody. And we would like to thank the Obermann Center and the University of Iowa Department of Theater Arts for making this Zoom visit possible. And this session is being recorded and it will be available for later viewing. For best experience, we recommend that attendees remain muted during the actual presentation until the question and answer portion. And if you want, you could set your Zoom window to speaker view, and I will drop instructions on how to do that in the chat, just in case you need those. Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce Professor Vincent Thomas from Towson University, who will give us an introduction to and a demonstration of the Liz Lerman critical response process. Professor Thomas has worked with multiple dance companies, including the Liz Lerman Dance Exchange, where he regularly used CRP. And he is an urban Bushwoman Bold facilitator, a faculty member for the Urban Bushwoman Summer Institutes in New York, and a professor of dance at Towson University in Maryland. And he is also the artistic director of the multidimensional performance company, VT Dance. There's still more people coming, oh my goodness, which builds on the use of contemporary dance, improvisation, text, movement, a variety of sound sources, and collaborations with other artists, including dancers, musicians, poets, visual artists, and others to be discovered. So welcome, Professor Thomas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon on this coast. It is so great to see your faces and to feel your energy. So I would like to say that I'm zooming in from the land of the Piscataway people, which is now known as Towson, Maryland. And I'm here in my office at Towson University. And behind me, there are books and binders and file cabinets. On this side of me, there's windows that I closed so that the light is not glaring in. I am a Black male with a salt and pepper goatee, with a black t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt on it, where it says then, now, next, which was from the International Association of Blacks in Dance conference a couple of years ago. And I'm so excited to be here. I am the grandson of Johnny and Alberta Thomas and Warren and Mariah Brown. And I'm the son of Willie B. and the late Georgia May Thomas. I'm so excited to be here. So I can see your names and faces, so I'm just going to kind of go through and say hello. And if you want to mute and say hello, unmute and say hello so I can hear your voice, that'll be fantastic. Hello, Mary.
Hello, hello. So happy to see you. Thanks.
You too. Hello, Anna Maria.
Hello, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hello, Jackie Fuentes.
Hi.
Hello, Megan Meyer.
Hi, so nice to meet you.
You too. Good morning, Darby Russell.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hello, Jack Delaney.
Hi.
Hello, Stephanie Miracle.
Hello, it's great to see you. I feel like it's been still crossing. It was still crossing that we danced together.
Yes.
Great to see you.
You too.
Yeah.
Hello, Michelle Shearer. Is that Michelle?
Hi. Yes, hi, Vincent.
Hi. Hello, Leah Krantz.
Hello.
Good morning, Tony Orico.
Good morning, Vincent. I'm so glad you're here.
Good morning, Mary Beth Easley.
Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning, Madison Bowman.
Good morning.
Hello, Lindsay Urbanski.
Hi.
Hi there, Ellie Daly.
Hello. Thank you for being here.
Yes. Good morning, Mark Bruckner.
Good morning.
Hello, Soraya Cohen. Soraya,
Hello.
Is it Soraya?
Yes, Soraya.
Soraya. Hello, Melissa Turner.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Mara Garbanzos.
Hi.
Hello there, Anastasia.
Yes, hello.
Beautiful. Hi, Maggie.
Hello.
Hi there. Hello, Cassidy.
Good morning.
Good
Hey.
morning. And hello, Brady Van Patten.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Beautiful. So, how I came to this work of the critical response process, I will say again, I was a member of the Liz Lerman Dance Exchange company back in the days when we were doing the Hallelujah Project. And that was a series, about 5 years of work moving around the country and internationally, looking at the question, what are you in praise of? And during my time there as a dancer, teaching with the company and working and engaging with community, we also used this critical response process quite a bit in a lot of different settings. And so Liz Lerman, she started developing this in the 1900s, in the 1990s. Of course, that was in the 1900s, as a system of peer response and showing art, with artists in charge of the critical sessions going deeper into the work in order to excite one into making art better. So what I love to embrace is that with this CRP, that the primary idea is for our investment and our excitement for artists to make better work, to be able to be excited about going into the studio and working again. So it's a very generous process in that way. So before we begin, I do want to go over just a few agreements for the space that we can all lean into. And one of those is that if we could have our best intentions for the artist as well as for ourselves, for us to be mindful, thoughtful, and curious about the experience. An agreement to be full of your value and to embrace critical analysis. A lot of times, the agreement that how I usually say that is to be full of my value and free of judgment. And that's still true, but being free of judgment, I want you to also embrace your critical analysis. And I believe that judgment and critical analysis are two different things. Another agreement is to acknowledge others in the space. So let's just take a moment to see each other, wave at each other. Yes. And the last agreement is to have serious fun. To have serious fun. And we'll be able to do that in this process. So if you can agree to those agreements for this space, I just want you to raise both arms as high as you can and stretch and let them swirl, swirl. And as you're seeing others in the space swirling, you can see that we're keeping each other accountable. Yep, keep it swirling. Beautiful. Now reach your arms up as high as you can. And then we're gonna, as a group, we're gonna bring the arms down slowly, staying with each other. How beautiful is this dance right here? Nice. Thank you so much for agreeing to those. So here is a question, and does everyone have something to write with and write on, that would be fantastic. So I'm going to give you a couple of moments to just kind of think about these two questions and just do a little bit of writing. You'll note, and the free writing is just a free write. You're going to be thoughtful and thinking about these two questions. You'll start writing when you hear some sound. And when the sound ends, you'll know to wrap your writing up. Is that clear? Great. And if you don't get to finish your writing, it's okay. You can always go back to it. So here's your question, your prompt that I want you to think about. When was a time you received really helpful and useful feedback? And when was a time you received not useful feedback? So you can spend time on either of those, or you can spend time on both of them within the allotted time. Yeah, so you dancer's choice, mover's choice, human's choice. You got some choices there. And begin. So you may be done, you might be mid-thought, and you can just do ellipses and go back to that a little bit later. So I'm curious to hear from a few of you, what came up for you when you were writing and thinking about that? And maybe let's hear a few from those who want to comment on a time that you received really useful feedback and helpful feedback. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about some of the times I've gotten the best feedback were when it was like really on like the meat of the content and not superficial, like little tweaking of things, but it was like it was clear that the person giving the feedback had like thought about it and was trying to understand what I was doing. And then they were like specific, and maybe critical, but also just like, they had really engaged with the material, and that felt really like great that they made that effort. And I was really appreciative of that. And yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there another thought from someone? Okay, what about a time when you received not useful feedback? I know you're not a shy bunch.
I can answer that.
Thank you, Brady.
There was a time during a rehearsal and being watched by the person who had made the work, and just hearing them on the sidelines say, "This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible," in the midst of the performance, and that does something to you as a performer when you're in the work, and to just hear that from the outside, that is not constructive or helpful or beneficial to any aspect of the piece or the people in it. So that was some not great, useful feedback.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate the range of experiences. I'll just share a time that I received not useful feedback. And it came from my brother. As a kid, I thought I had a fashion sense, but I would put on something that I thought looked really good, ready to go to middle school. And my older brother said to me, "What do you got on? Like, what you doing with those colors?" That wasn't very helpful feedback for me. So that was a time that comes up for me that I remember, of the many, many times that we have and experiences in our lives. But you can think about this any moment. It could be a moment that you made spaghetti, or you made a meal that you thought was really delicious, but someone didn't give you good feedback about it, or vice versa. Yeah. So thinking, opening up that lens, are there any other thoughts about a time that you received really good feedback or not so much? We can hear maybe from one more person.
Tony, go for it.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, for good feedback, I'm remembering just last year applying for grants, and in the denial letter, there was an invitation to make a closing appointment for like a 30-minute session with the director of the program. And it was really useful because you got to look at the reviewers' comments and strategize for future applications. And just overall, it was a healthy program where even in applying for the grant, they had a lot of workshops and preparation for it. And I appreciated that. A negative time, really simply, just like in a recent meeting with a colleague, just kind of tangential statements that started to kind of build a case for like something that was not working. And it was really hard to sort of flesh out and get like out of the weeds and flesh out a specific line of like inquiry or investigation and start trying to find solutions for individual things as if they weren't all a stacking.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And if you would, now that I feel like there are some windows of our minds opening up about how we can think about this, maybe you just take a couple of seconds to just jot down, how did it make you feel? Like, I heard from Michelle, who shared, she was sharing that how something made her feel, or how something made him feel. Just look at those two questions and think, so when I get really good feedback that's useful, how does it make me feel? And when I get not so useful feedback, how does that make me feel? And just, you can jot those down beside those places that you were writing on as well. I'm going to give you a little bit less time to write this time because you're just jotting some emotional things down there as indicators. Great. And hopefully, you know, I would love it that for me, the conversations around critical response process, they are ongoing. Like, this might be just a start of things, but you can find these conversations and how they may blossom and emerge after our time together today. So you can even have conversations with each other around these two questions as you continue to think, because other things will emerge for you. And I would just say that, you know, the critical response, it enables a group of people to uncover their various aesthetic and values, sometimes performance values, and by being patient, apply them to a creative work in progress in a way that pushes the artist's thinking forward. So when we have the best intention for the artist or the work and wanting that to really become better, a lot of things are uncovered under that, you know? And I'll just have to say, we all have biases, right? Sometimes there are good biases and sometimes there are not. And so, you know, I'm in this cohort where we are looking at critical response from another angle, which is part of a certification. And one of the things that I'm struck and have been thinking about in all this time from, you know, dealing with critical response is that we come into a space with so much information, with our experiences and our biases and the things we like, the things we don't like. And sometimes in this process, it can feel that you have to put those things to the side. And I want you to explore with me where we really honor those things and have them, and we can use them in a very productive and constructive way as we're looking at art. So we're going to take a little warm up with this. Yeah? Are you ready for a warm up? Thumbs up? Okay, great. So if you have index cards in the room, you have an index card. If not, you'll use a piece of paper or something that you can have one side and then the other side. All right? So before we do this, let me get some language from you, especially from the young people. Now, way back in the day, there was a little saying with a flower, and you would have the flower and you would take a petal off one at a time. And what did people say with that? She loves me not. He loves me not. All right, so that, this side or that side. Now, today, young people, tell me, how do you describe things that you like? Come on, unmute and tell me. Any thoughts?
Hello.
Hi.
We were just saying we like things.
We like things. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you looking for like a hip language?
That's it.
What's the hip language?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's fierce.
That's
That's
right.
fierce.
Yes.
That's lit.
Yes.
Ooh, lit.
Okay. All right. So, and what about that's fire? Yeah. And I see now you're smiling because you say, "Oh yeah, I know what it is." So I'm trying to be hip. So you say, "Oh, that's fire or not fire," right? Or that's lit or not lit. Are we clear on how we're going to kind of frame this warm up? So you can decide how you want to look at the opposite side of this.
We have another one.
What's another one?
Oh yeah.
Okay, the snap applause. What's the opposite of the snap applause? Mary goes like, so thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, we can use that one too. So it'll be your choice how you want to use that. You can use thumbs up, thumbs down. You can use that's lit, that's not lit. You can use that's fire, that's not fire. You can use love it not. Or in the words of In Living Color, hated it or loved it, hated it. You can use that too. It's up to you. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a piece of art. And on one side of your index card or your paper, you're going to just jot down all the things that you like about it, that you find that's lit, that's hot, that's fire, that's fierce, thumbs up. And on the other side, you're going to acknowledge those biases, those things you're thinking, oh, that's not lit, not fire, not fierce. Is that clear? Okay, so I'm going to show you the piece of art, and then you'll have a couple of moments to write. Okay. So everyone take a nice deep inhale and exhale slowly. And take a moment to look at your list on each side and just look at what you wrote. And I want to go to the side that's fire, that's fierce, that's lit, thumbs up, I like it, I love it, that list. And let's just, and yes, Brady, some of those snaps. So what are some of the things you have on that list? And you can just, you can unmute or you can put them in the chat collector, that treasure chest.
I put down texture.
Texture, great. Keep them coming. What else?
Darkness.
What was that? What was that one?
Darkness.
Darkness, okay. I see
Firebird.
Firebird, I see intensity, line, side, splash of yellow, scratch marks, contrast. These are things that you thought were lit. Fire, what else?
The abstractness of the piece.
Okay, great. What else?
The movement.
Beautiful.
The size, dimension.
Size and dimension. Mhm.
Depth.
The depth of it. Great. I see color choices, center focus, layers of color, magnetic, texture. Those are great. So these we'll call that's a practice for some step ones that you acknowledge what things are striking, evocative, surprising for you, memorable. And these are how we encapsulate thinking about step ones when we get to that particular process. We're going to hold on to the other side of your paper for a little bit later. Yeah? But just kind of to live and understand that, wow, those are some things that, that I really liked about it. I will share with you a little bit about this particular piece of art. It was, this was the first piece of art that was given to me, I think, ever. I was in college, and my music fraternity brother, Troy Campbell, he was a percussionist, but he's also a visual artist, and he gave me this piece of art. And at first, I didn't know what to think about it. But because of my affection for him and what he stood for and how he was as a human being, I knew there was so much more in it. And I embraced the art. And I actually, displayed it in my apartments and homes for quite a while. And it began to speak to me even more and more and more. And I continue to have questions about the art too, that he and I have had wonderful conversations about. So was it like, it wasn't like, a traditional artist that I had known about growing up, but it did something different for me. So I just want to share that with you right there. That piece of art means something to me. So it's really good to see all of these step ones, these words that you were attracted to, you found some energy around as well. So hold on to the idea of step ones. Let me just talk about the who, critical response process, the who. And these are the roles in the critical response process. There are 4 roles that are pretty much standard. The first role is that of the artist. And the artist will offer a work in progress for review and is prepared to question that work in dialogue with others, to hear feedback, to hear constructive criticism. Another role is that of the responders, a group of folks who will experience the art and are committed to the artist's intent to make excellent work. The responders, they engage in the dialogue with the artist. So there's a conversation, there's dialogue. There's a facilitator. The facilitator initiates each step, manages the transitions, keeps the process on track. It helps keep the artist and the responders use the process to frame useful questions and responses. And typically there's a documenter. so when the artist is receiving information and hearing a lot of things from the responders, instead of the artist having to write things down, there's usually someone there to take notes for the artist so that they can just be present and listening and not having to worry about writing things down. A lot of times when I do critical response process, and sometimes it's like a speed round, and sometimes it's there's not a documenter, but I rely on the responders to be documenters. So I use index cards in that way. So, and we will be able to do that today because we have two pieces of art that we'll see. And if everyone had an index card and you're able to write down your step ones and your question, your neutral question, then we can give that to the artist at the end, and they have a capsule of all that yummy information. Sometimes there's a timekeeper, but I'm going to be the timekeeper as well as the facilitator. So those are the four roles that are used in critical response process. Now let's look at the steps. The what. There are 4 steps in the critical response process. Step 1, those are the statements of meaning. When I was in the company with Liz Lerman Dance Exchange early in the late 90s, we were using what is affirmations. But then through a lot of work and processing and thinking about it, Liz kind of let the word affirmations go and went to statements of meaning. What had meaning for you? As I continue to work with that, I also found other ways of thinking about statements of meaning. So I might say, let's do some M&Ms, moments of meanings. And I just say M&Ms because, you have peanut M&Ms, you have peanut butter, you got plain, you got all kind of M&Ms. So I think I'm thinking about food too, but M&Ms, moments of meaning. I also use the word flowers. Let's give some flowers to the artist. Let's give them flowers. So what is a flower you might want to give to the artist based on what you just saw? So I just try to find many ways to stimulate the responders, the reviewers, in thinking about what do you want to give to the artist from what you just saw. So these moments of meaning. Step 2, the artist will ask a question of the responders. The artist will ask a question about the work, and the responders answer being mindful to stay on topic with the question. So it's pretty simple. I like to make sure that I have time with the artist to talk to them so that they can have time to craft a thoughtful question. And so in our examples today, they will have a question that they'll ask you about the art that they'll show. The third step is neutral questions from responders. And this is, I think, where we have to do some work, because sometimes sometimes it's hard to find, okay, what is a neutral question? But neutral questions they're neutral when they do not have an opinion couched in them. And even with that, that's pretty hard. But I think there's a serious fun way that we could get at neutral questions. And we're going to explore that in a few minutes as well. And then step 4, an opinion time. The responders, they state opinions subject to permission from the artist. And the usual form for that is, I have an opinion about ... Would you like to hear it? I have an opinion about ... Would you like to hear it? So you're asking the artist for permission about this particular thing. And knowing that the artist has the option to say no, and that's okay. and maybe the artist is not ready or to think about that or haven't thought about that. And a lot of times, you know, when you're really listening to the dialogue that's happening in step 1, 2, and 3, a lot of times the artist is ready for those opinions because of what the work that has been done in steps 1, 2, and 3, especially 2 and 3. So just know that, you know, if you ask an opinion, if you have an opinion about something that you want to ask the artist about, and if they say no, you know, that's okay. But you know, it's in diving deep in this opinion time, we also know that the asker might feel some kind of way, and we're human. But to know that the power is in the artist's hands to be able to respond to a question or an opinion or not. And so we will look at ways of turning our opinions into neutral questions, or our biases into neutral questions. So that's part of the work. So now let's look at this particular step, step 3, finding a neutral question. All right, so I have some more fun ways to do this. All right, so here's one. I'll give you an example that we typically use in the critical response process workshops. Here's an example. And this is an opinionated question. Why do you always end your dances in a circle? I mean, you can hear in my tone of voice what opinion that is. So I'll just say it again. This is an opinionated question. Why do you always end your dances in a circle? Okay. Now, the embedded opinion in that is you always end your dances in the same predictable way. That's the opinion that is coming out of that. So how do we turn that into a neutral question? It might sound something like this. What's the significance of a circle to you? Or talk about your choreographic choices for the end of your dance. Do you hear how I've just turned that around to make it non-neutral? But I'm trying to investigate about, I want to know more about the circle and what the circle means for the artist, or what other choices were there that they didn't use to get to the circle. And maybe they did try some of those other things. Does that make sense? Okay, so now here's a chance for you to try. I'm going to give you an opinionated question. And you can just unmute and just talk about what is the embedded opinion and what might be a neutral question. So here's an opinionated question. Are you intentionally playing out of tune? Or are you intentionally singing out of tune? So what might be the embedded opinion in that? Megan, you got one? As you sip your tea. What might be the embedded opinion? Anyone? Yes, Anna Maria?
Maybe you don't have a proper pitch or don't know how to be in tune.
Okay, okay, Is there another embedded opinion about that? Yes, Brady.
That it doesn't sound pleasant, that it doesn't sound the best.
Or like we would say down south, it don't sound good. What's another embedded opinion?
You can't sing.
You can't sing, yes. Okay, now let's think about how can we turn that into a neutral question. What might be a neutral question to this opinionated question? Are you intentionally playing out of tune? How could you turn that into a neutral question?
I see you're playing with dissonance in your selection.
Okay. Okay.
Can you
Yeah.
explain?
We have another one in that room.
Yeah, can you explain your music choices?
Okay. Can you explain your music choices? Or was that Emily? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And Emily, I'm going to kind of focus that question to a little bit more. Can you explain the key that you're playing in relationship to the musical composition? So that's that's more direct. Does everyone understand how I just shifted that to make it a little bit more focused? Yeah. What's another way that we might be able to turn that into a neutral question?
What is the significance of this choice?
Yes. So there are many ways that we could turn that into a neutral question. Yeah. And I would just say that in trying to do that, you just try, you ask the question, and the facilitator will help shape and guide that for you. You know what I mean? So not to be fearful for not wanting to ask the wrong question. And sometimes we get that a lot, but to know that it is a practice in doing. So here, what I would like for you to do now is to do some real practice now with some of those opinionated questions and embedded opinions that you had about the artwork. So now go to the other side of that sheet or that index card you had where you were writing that's hot, that's fierce, that's lit about the piece of art. And now how can you take those things those biases that showed up on the other side, how can you turn those into a neutral question now? Yeah. And I'm going to give you like a minute to practice writing down the question. Just writing down the question from just trying.
Say, say, say. Say, say, say. Say a prayer for me. Strange fruit come down off that tree. Cut it down under your feet. Juicy fruits so bittersweet. Fruits that talk, these fruits go deep. Strange fruit busting on these days. Ancestors don't take defeat. Left us a victory. In the air, tigress and tweed. Oh, and carry, you carry. I'm tired, great buried. The truth of these you carry.
Great. I love Andra Day. I'm just saying. All right. So anyone want to throw your neutral questions attempt out there, and let's just hear what you have. So I'm going to go to the chat collector. Thank you so much, Christy. What was your intention for the image in the center? Okay. What would you like the viewer to feel when looking at the middle? Or how would you like the viewer to feel after they stopped looking at the painting? Those are great neutral questions. Are there some more? Tell me about your color choices. Okay. Jack, do you have a thought?
I think a question I would ask is like, what was your inspiration behind it?
Okay.
What is the significance of all the darkness?
What was your process in arranging tones and values of color? Ooh, okay. What is the significance of the scratch marks? Tell me about the inspiration of your color choices. How did your color choices influence your overall tone that you wanted your audience to feel? Regarding color choice, what is the meaning intention behind selection of or relationship quantities of specific color? How do you apply the paint? Great. So all of these are really great questions that you have kind of turned them from that place of, I don't like that, or that's not lit, into something more productive and useful for the artist to consider. Yeah. What is your, okay, great. I'm just seeing more of these in there. Thank you. So tell me about your choice to include bits of yellow in this primary red and black piece. All right, Darby. Okay. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. So now what we're going to do, and then in step 4, in careful listening of step 1, 2, and 3, especially 2 and 3, the questions and how you may turn that into a question, your embedded opinion might shift, and it might inform how much or how little do we need step 4, I have an opinion about. Because you may have gotten that answered when you ask your question to the artist, and you still may have a question. I have an opinion about the box shape in the center of the artwork. Would you like to hear it? Yeah. Why is that so central to, and the artist might be so willing and so ready to hear that by this point. So does everyone understand and see how beautifully this can be crafted to still have the artist, the maker, and fully in charge of and empowered in being able to receive feedback and hear feedback? Great. So we have 2 samples of work in progress that we're going to watch. And so I'm going to facilitate kind of a speed round of critical response process. Yeah. So, and the way that I'm going to do this is we're going to see the work. We'll see the first work, and then I'll give you like a minute to jot down some that's lit, that's not lit. You can jot those 2 things down on the sides for you. And then we'll give some step 1s, some flowers, some moments of meaning, some M&Ms to the artist. And then we'll hear the question, the artist's question, and we'll hear a couple of responses to that. And then you're formulating your question that you would like to ask the artist. And we'll hear 1 or 2 of those. And then we'll go to the step 4, I have an opinion about. Would you like to hear it, if there are any of those as well? And then we'll go to the second piece of artwork. Does that make sense? So it's going to go pretty quick like this. Typically, a critical response process session might last an hour, or it might last 2 hours. 2 hours is really good, especially if it depends on the work that's being shown. I did one a couple of weeks ago. I had 3 particular pieces, and I allotted 20 minutes for each one. And so it was a real speed round. So I'm pretty used to doing a speed round, but just know that they can take a little bit more time. Yeah. All right. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. So I think Miss Caroline is going to give context for what we're going to see, and then we'll see the first piece.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline. I'm coming to you from the lower levels of the theater building here at University of Iowa. What's up, Stephanie Miracle? Go Turks! Yes, I am teach acting here at University of Iowa. These are 3 of my students, 2 master's students, Olivia Foster from Atlanta, Georgia, Katie Guchik from
Hudson, Ohio.
Hudson, Ohio. We have Emily Gamal, a dance major taking an acting class, coming to us from Malaysia. And this piece comes out of our acting work in our master's class, working very much with the playback theater work of Augusta Boal and Theater of the Oppressed, and the embodiment work of Anna DeVere Smith and verbatim theater. What I had the students do was interview one another in the cohort and then come up with a full embodiment piece: gesture, voice, movement, sound, depth, range, in celebration and in offering to, as we work to decolonize the classroom and truly in service of seeing one another. So these are 2 pieces from our actresses based on interviews they did with fellow students, and Emily will be dancing.
During. Yes. Again, hello, I am Katie Guchik. So this started, you know how in like the 1970s, Hasbro tried to get the Ouija board as like a regular board game like Candyland? Well, my grandma, she's like super Catholic, like super religious. So she like hates anything with the devil, like all that shit. Like her whole house is like full of Jesus, like I swear. And my aunt, her daughter bought one. And her friend would do it in secret, like at her house. But then one night she did it alone. And you're not supposed to ever do that. So she's like doing it alone in her room. And of course, there's like all this Jesus stuff. And there's this big Virgin Mary statue there. And I'll get to that later. So she's like doing it. And she's like asking it all this stuff. Like, oh, if anyone's here, say yes. And then she's asking it, like, what's your favorite color? Like all that stupid shit. But then she asks it, like, how old are you? And it says 0. And what's significant about 0 is that demons, they were never born, so they don't have an age. So it goes right to 0. So it goes right to 0 because it doesn't have an age. So she's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, what's your name? And it starts to spell out D-E-V-I-L. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God. And then it starts like going around like crazy, starts moving on the board, like on its own. And at the same time, the Virgin Mary statue, it slowly starts to turn its back to her on its own. And while it's doing that, it's starting to spell out like, look at your bitch now. And so it starts like this, and then it's just slowly like this. And so that's why it's spelling this out. So she like drops it. She starts praying super hard. And she said it gets like really bad. And then all of a sudden it just stops. The Virgin Mary statue turns back around and everything just stops. But she never said goodbye though. So we believe that my grandma's house was like a portal for really bad fucking things. Like really bad fucking things. Like a portal for really bad fucking things. Yeah. And my aunt, the one who like did the Ouija board thing, she is like fucking haunted. Like every house she goes to, like every fucking house, like every single house is haunted. Yeah. It just like follows her. So I have more ghost stories, but I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Yeah.
Great. Nice. So thank you so much, Katie and Emily.
Yeah.
And so for everyone, I'm going to give you like less than a minute to jot down some step ones. And also, if you want to do the other side of that as well, because that'll help you think about your step 3 question. All right. Okay. So these are step 1s, moments of meaning. M&Ms or flowers that we want to give to Caroline, no, to Katie and Emily on their first piece. And you can also use the treasure chest, the chat collector, for some of the step ones, but it will be great to hear about 3 or 4 voices to unmute and put your step ones out there for them. And go.
I loved the story. I thought it was really intriguing. It kept me interested and I kept on wanting to hear more and see where it was going.
Great. Another.
I love the way her leg was shaking. I thought that was very authentic.
Great. Another. Yes, Brady.
There was something that I enjoyed that came up during the storytelling, and I don't know if it was intentional, but this Ouija board action movement that seemed to come from the body, I would have loved to have seen more of that and how that can, I was happy to see that. I wanted to see more of it.
Great. Thank you. And time out for a little process. So Brady, that was really great. But did you all hear that he also added a little bit more, that he could turn that into a question later? He said, I wanted to see more of that. And that's also kind of a step one, because you want to see more of it, you know what I mean? But it might lead some information for him to think about what question can he ask the artist that might get more of that for him later. Does that make sense? Yes, Christy.
Could that also be an like, I have an opinion about this movement, would you like to hear it?
Yes, it could.
Okay.
Yeah, it also could feed into step 4 for you. Thank you, Brady, for throwing that out there. That was great. So one more. I thought someone unmuted.
There's one in the chat that's great.
I love the range of tones in Katie's voice. I also love to see how Emily's movements mirrored those changes. Great. Integration of movement and monologue felt like inner workings of the narrative, opportunity to be multi-representational. Excellent. Wonderful. I'm going to move us to step number 2, where the artist will ask a question. So Katie and Emily, you have your question ready?
Yeah. Go. Okay. Hello. Yeah, the question I would love to ask is, were there any moments where the energy of my embodiment seemed to drop or to not be clear? That's a good question.
Okay, so Katie, thank you for that. I just want to clarify the question that you are seeking, because I hear 2 different questions in the question that you asked.
Okay.
You're asking about, were there moments where the energy of your body modulated or dropped? Okay. The second question was about clarity in your body.
Yes, I guess because this was done as an embodiment of someone who I interviewed. So maybe I can clarify if there were any points where it seemed, and you guys don't know me, but if there were any times that seemed unclear that I was embodying someone else instead of just being myself. I don't know. Yeah. Does that
Yeah. And there is a third question. but I think it's great because you're trying to, I mean, you have a lot of questions and, you know, we can just take one of those, you know what I mean? But I think they're all 3 questions, but I think they're different questions, you know, because of the content, the context of someone that you interviewed, maybe we didn't know that. And maybe we didn't know that you were embodying the physicality of that person. you know?
Mhm.
So that's good information to know.
Yeah. So
So
then maybe an easier question to answer is just across the board, were there any moments where the energy dropped and it maybe you lost interest because the energy dropped?
okay. Okay. So that's the question.
Yes.
Are we speaking about your body or Emily's body or both?
We do both.
Both.
Okay. So the question is, were there moments where the energy of the bodies of the mover or the monologuer dropped or shifted? And this question is for anyone to respond to. Brady?
I've never felt a drop into it. I am interested and could have I feel like it has potential to tap into like a 8 or a 9, or to even just to see what that would be like. What would a 10, to see what a 10 would be like, and then kind of dissolve down. Yeah, I had never thought about anything else. I was very captivated with what was happening. Sometimes the two worlds bump a little bit, and that maybe keeps it neutral. But no, I never felt like I was never pulled out.
Beautiful. I'm just giving you a little snap applause, Brady, because that was really excellent in the response, because I'm just speaking process now, because he also, in responding to the artist's question, it also really opens up a wide way of answering that, because there are also ways that he could think about, I have an opinion about. When he said going to a 9 or a 10, he could talk about that energy level as an opinion too, but he gracefully brought that in towards his response to their question. So thank you. Yes, Anna Maria.
I'm wondering now if I'm staying in the spirit of the question, so you can give me feedback on that. I had a little trouble when, after the second and especially the third use of the F word, and I wasn't sort of looking at the way you framed your question. Was that really the embodiment, or was that sort of riffing off of the moment from you?
So this is great, and I want to just do a timeout again. So Anna Marie, thank you so much for this question, and it's an attempt to answer a question with a question, but your question it's not central to the question of the artist, but you have a great question that I want you to hold on to. Does everyone understand that? Yeah, because Anna Marie, the question that Katie asked was there a moment where the energy of the body dropped? And your question has, it speaks about language, some of the language that is used, which may affect body energy, but I see that as a separate question. And I would love for you to hold on to that, because it's a really great question to ask, because it's so opinionated. You know what I mean? And I can see that you've turned it into a neutral question for yourself. Beautiful. Okay, any other responses to Katie's question? Beautiful. So we're gonna just keep on rolling. We're gonna go to step 3. Now, Katie and Emily, the responders, they will ask a question. Who wants to go first? Come on, jump on in the water. It's warm.
Okay, I have one.
Great.
So, you talked about wanting to know about energy, and so I would like to ask what your interest in stillness versus movement is with the two bodies in the space.
So as the facilitator, I'll just repeat the question, Emily and Katie.
I think yes.
Yeah, she's asking about, and just correct me if I'm incorrect. She's asking about the use of stillness between the two bodies within the performance piece.
For me, I was listening very closely to what she was saying when there would be pauses in her in her words. Usually that would symbolize a pause for me, unless it was like the statue is turning and then I would be like slowly turning. So it relied a lot on listening, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that from you as well. And the particular person that I interviewed she speaks very fast and has a lot of movement. And so the moments of stillness in her speech were very apparent to me. And I feel like she used them to emphasize a point, like because the first time she really stopped was when she was like the Virgin Mary statue there. So in working through this, yeah, I really tried to make sure that I emphasize those because it felt like it helped move the point of the monologue along.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anna Marie, would you like to try your question now?
Can you explain the repeated use of the F word after the first two questions? Like there's a fucking a lot going on. Like I think that happened twice, and then there were a few more. After the second, can you talk about the choice for using that?
Yes, thank you. So a big part of this embodiment is that it was also a verbatim theater piece. So in interviewing her, for this part, I cut out the beginning part, but she did use the F word throughout. And so I didn't want to censor her speech and really wanted to try and get the full embodiment of her story. And she was dropping a lot of F-bombs along the way. So I decided to keep those in.
Beautiful. Thank you. So in light of time, I'm just going to say that those were some great questions for them. And I want to go to step 4 now for responders who may have an opinion about that you would like to ask of the artist. Tony.
Emily, this is for you just in response to when you asked about energy, you did mention clarity, and on the topic of clarity, specifically in the mechanics of the body, could I offer a suggestion?
Great.
And then you guys
go. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just curious, Emily, with the, I was noticing, I also really enjoyed the movement of the legs that was mentioned in step 1. The lean into your body and the posture, resting into your hand. That read for me it didn't feel like the leverage was real. I'm a body person. And so I was just kind of looking at that and wondering like about the posture and how that felt for you.
Sorry, are you talking about at the beginning?
Oh, I'm sorry, Emily. Katie.
Oh. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I was trying, that's how she was sitting at the beginning. So I didn't film her, so it's only from memory. I just recorded her voice. So I really tried to remember how she was sitting, and she was like leaning back in the chair with the foot tucked and the leg shaking. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my point was just the leveraging of it seems unreal to me, was my opinion.
The leveraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Right.
was like, also, I don't know how clear you can see, but she was also like picking her teeth a lot with her pinky. So I was like doing that a little bit. Yeah.
Great. So before we move to the next one, I just want to just point out a couple of things. So that was a great one, a really good example, Tony. And in his opinion, he's suggesting that maybe you look more deeply in the realness of the gesture. Is that correct, Tony?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And so to dive into that, and I'll also say that Stephanie had, she could continue with hers and I have an opinion about where she can get the artist to think about the power of stillness and the use of stillness, in which Katie spoke about the power of the stillness after the Virgin Mary statue. But how can that be even more explored and useful in the piece when they go back into the studio to work again? Is that clear? Good. So let's give them a hand, please. Okay, so I told you this would be speed round. All right, so we've got two more. We have Olivia and Emily again.
Hi.
It's bringing back so many memories. She would always make pound cake, and that was my favorite cake that she would make. And she would always, but I think her favorite cake to make was like a pineapple upside down cake. Yeah, and my mom liked that, and her lemon cake, and her lemon cake, and I loved her pound cake, and the texture of it was always perfect. It was just, I'm not trying to get all sad, but I think I would eat the pound cake by itself. And I remember her making two things, definitely two things, gumbo and red beans and rice. Now her red beans and rice were the best. Like I haven't had anything as good as her red beans and rice. Like my mom's a close second, but something about my grandma's red beans and rice. She would normally make it with like chicken. Yeah, like fried chicken. Ooh, now my stomach's all, ooh. So I'm hungry too. Bring back all these memories. But like Louisiana gumbo, she would, have the shrimp in there and the sausages, and she would make it in this like big pan. I don't know how to describe it. Not a pan, but a pot, a big silver pot. And it was like this big. And I think my mom still has it now, but she'd have to like sit it outside for it to cool down or something like that. But yeah.
Great, beautiful, thank you. And so you know what we're gonna do. I'm gonna play some music, write down your step ones, write down your question for step 3,
Always pressing that line, so full.
Okay. All right, and here again, we can use the chat collector for additional step ones, moments of meanings, and unmute and go.
I just have to say, I really reacted to the juxtaposition of the joy of the memory and the sadness of the memory. It really hit me.
I really love the hand motion with beans and rice. And also, Emily, when you drop backward on the floor, that was great. Love that.
Yeah, the juxtaposition between at points having the recollection, the memory be so filled with warmth, and then Emily almost, it was like sort of this contrapuntal sort of thing where the movements were very sort of striking and almost assaultive. It was powerful.
Is there one more? Cassidy, do you have one?
I guess I just wrote down I really liked all like the pauses you took and how I mean, I know you're acting, but like how like it made you seem like how you were really like thinking about what you're like gonna respond to next. I don't know. It was just really good.
And I will say with step ones, Cassidy, that's a really powerful step one that you just gave, because you were recognizing something that maybe they, as the artists, haven't tapped into, the pauses. Another one that's in the chat collector, I really enjoyed the red beans and rice moment and the phrases following, very well performed. Great. Okay, we're going to go to step two. I'm looking at time, and I just want to make sure that they have time to ask their question and you have a chance to ask questions. Step two, artists, would you ask your question, please?
My question is, did the work incite any childhood memories or memories of like your own grandmother or grandparent, or that like connection with food?
Nice. That's for anyone. Anna Marie?
When you were talking about the pot, I pictured my husband's big stock pot, which he doesn't get to use very often, but loves the opportunity to use. So that was the vision in my mind.
When you were talking about the red beans and rice, and you were saying how your grandma makes it best, but your mom's is almost as good, made me think about a Filipino dish that my grandma always makes. My mom tries to make it and it's really good, but it's never as good as when my grandma makes it.
Beautiful. Is there another?
I'd just like to give one to Emily. The moment when you were sitting on the floor and you were sort of tapping your heels, that really embodied for me kind of that moment of like trying to remember and being restless. And it was just so vivid.
Nice. So I'm going to go to the next step where the responders may ask a question. And Stephanie, I did see your comment in there, and it'll be wonderful to see if you can turn that into a question. So anyone has a question that you would like to ask? Yes, Brady.
Have you played with having the storyteller not sit and be stationary?
I haven't, only because, like Katie was saying, that's how we interviewed our people. We had the sit down interviews. Some other pieces, we had people that were standing, but that's because they were standing during the interview. And so my interviewee was sitting when I was doing the interview. So that's why I haven't really played with levels with like that.
Yeah, so what I wrote in the chat was just in direct response to if it brought up memories. But yeah, I think there is a question in there, and that has to do with, can you tell me about where this person is sitting now and who they're talking to? I want to know more about the context.
So I did the interview in my office. And so she was sitting in like a rolly chair, but she wasn't rolling anywhere. She was very like still, but had these like little movements and gestures. And so she was talking to me, and I was asking her multiple questions as we were going through. So I think I had asked 2 questions during that whole interview that you guys heard. Yeah.
I think something just that I would say as their instructor is this is where you find us at this point in the process. But I am learning so much in terms of, because we're going to continue with embodiment. Surprise, y'all. We're going to continue with it. But that what is it to now that we have sort of the basic kind of roux, what does the gumbo look like blown up and out into the next steps of embodiment? So this is so helpful on so many levels.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to shift us now to step 4, where responders, you may offer opinionated thoughts, starting with, I have an opinion about ... Would you like to hear it? Yes, Brady. And I'll
I have an opinion and an interest in what I'm seeing between the stationary of the storyteller and the movement from the dancer. Would you like to hear that?
Yep.
For me, as a viewer, it's very much getting an actor acts and a dancer dances. And I would love to see how that's just what I would love to see, how these 2 worlds mold.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm hungry for it.
Yeah.
These 2 things in both of them are intriguing. The food, boom, brings me in right away. I can drop in quickly. The other one with religion and demons, boom, I'm dropped in right away. So I'm here. I'm tapping on that window. I'm interested. Yeah.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Yes.
So when we got here, we had like 3 separate entities of pieces. So Emily was improving and like listening to everything that we had said. She had never heard our pieces ever. And so if we would have because I have a dance background as well. So it would have been really fun to, I know in Mary's class, I did a poem and I danced with a poem. And so like putting that together, I understand that like want for like the merging of worlds. So I love that comment. Thank you.
Great. And Anna Maria, we can get you really quickly.
Actually, similar question, just differently phrased. I have an opinion about the location of the dancer. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
I wanted to see the dancer come more forward because she tends to stay behind the monologuer. And so I thought that if the dancer was even more frequently on the side rather than so much in the background, I would have had a better sense of that interaction between the 2.
Yeah, both times I didn't want to upstage the person talking because I felt like I was the one listening to them for the most part. So I did not want to upstage them in any way.
Yeah. But what I love about what is surfacing is you all are giving them so much information and juice to go back into rehearsing again and try some things. So this is how the process works. It works to the artist's advantage. to be really in dialogue and conversation with those who really want them to make their work better. We have that best intention in mind. So, I just want everyone to take a nice exhale and wipe your brow. That was quick, but I really appreciate you just diving in and just playing, having some serious fun with me with this process. I hope it was fruitful for you. My email, Christy and Caroline, they can get you all my email. I would love to be in touch and hear how things are going with you. But thank you so much. This was so much
thank you to
fun.
everybody. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Emily and Katie and Olivia.
Yes. So that's all I have for right now. We need like 30 more minutes.
I know.
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge, are we completely out of time?
Yeah, we are supposed to end at 12:30.
Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge Alvin Mays, a professor of dance at University of Maryland, College Park. He brought Vincent to me, thus I was able to bring Vincent to our Obermann group and thus to you. And now that we have our hands on you, Vincent, try getting away.
No, I would love to come there like in person and do some work, I would love it. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.